Hey, it's A Humble Collector here, and today's video we're taking a look at the 2-pound death card of Xavier Wolfl. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. So before I actually start on the text of the card itself, there's a bit of an interesting story with the Wolfl family here of Bodenmice. So a couple years ago, was buying cards from a guy out in California. I bought a card from him on eBay. He was like, hey, I've got like a couple hundred more of these. If you're interested, we can make a deal. And the deal ended up being that I would send him a certain amount of money every month, and he would send me about, a dozen cards. And I was surprised as I was buying these cards from him over the course of, I think it was about a year, that I ended up with almost, I believe it was like 11 or 12 cards, all from different members of the Wolfl family from Bodenmice. And so my original plan for that was to actually do a big, kind of special, since I had so many cards from one family, from one place. But unfortunately, when I finally got around to researching them, I was disappointed to find that I could only get casualty records for 3 of the family, and the rest of them I really couldn't find any information on. So what I'm going to do instead is they will all be split up and have separate videos, and maybe eventually down the road, if more casualty records become available, I'll be able to put something together. But I just didn't really feel like I had enough information for like a long, specific special on them. But if that's something you guys are interested in, maybe I'll reconsider. So now going to the actual text of the card itself, we have a nice photo of Xavier there. Our beloved son and good brother who died a hero's death in the East, Xavier Wolfl from Bodenmice, Obergefreiter in an artillery regiment, bearer of the Eastern Front Medal and the Wound Badge, who fell on August 8th, 1943 at the age of 23. Now, Xavier was actually one of the few I was able to find a casualty record for. He was born on November 25th, 1920 in Bodenmice, and was a member of the 13th Company of Grenadier Regiment 488, part of the 268th Infantry Division. Now, by the time that Xavier was actually killed, his regiment had officially been disbanded and was being reformed as Regimental Group 488. And the entire division itself would actually be disbanded in November just because of the massive casualties they were taking on the Eastern Front. And his place of death here is listed as Sslussna, and he was killed by a direct artillery hit. So, interestingly, I ended up going down a bit of a rabbit hole with this, because Sslussna, oddly enough, was also the death location of another member of the division I had a card for. And so I kind of became really determined I have to find this village. And what I found out is there's a ton of references to a Sslussna, which is Sslusna, in German records from the period, particularly the 260th Infantry Division, which was operating in the same area. However, I couldn't find anything on a map, despite how hard I tried. I tried different spellings, tried translating into Russian, using that. Nothing was really working. So what I ended up doing is looking on Lexicon, they have some period maps of the front line. And sure enough, on the one that I have up on screen here, you can see that Sslussna is actually right by where the 268th is operating. And from that, I could actually find several of the other towns' villages here. Terenino, Zdanovo, and Glatovka, which are all east of Yelnya. So I already had some good markers here that I could kind of use to triangulate where I thought this village should be. And finally, after looking around this area for probably 30 minutes, I found the marker for a place called Sluzna. Sluzna, not Sslusna. So the reason this place doesn't come up, though, on a normal map search is because it doesn't exist. Even though the place name is still on Google Maps, the village itself is long gone. As you can see from the zoom in here, it's just a field by a road. Now, whether the village was destroyed in the fighting in the region or was, just abandoned over the next couple decades, I don't really know. If anybody's from that area could provide some more perspective, I'd appreciate it. However, one thing I found really interesting is that just west of here is actually a World War II memorial, the Gnezdolovskaya Hill Memorial, which is for the Soviet soldiers that were killed fighting in the region. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Now, the other interesting thing, I think I mentioned this in the last video actually, I have 7 cards for other members of the 268th Infantry Division. How that is, I don't know, because when I buy these cards, very rarely do they ever come pre-researched. So I buy cards, I research them, and somehow I've just ended up with a lot of cards from this division. And there is a divisional history, but as of the date of this video being filmed, which is beginning of August at this point, I have not been able to locate a copy for sale anywhere on the internet. So if you know where I could find a copy, please email me. I am very interested in getting one, but unfortunately I've not been able to locate one yet. So going through the cards for other members of the division that I have, we have Alois Viknagel, who was an Unteroffizier in the 10th Company of Infantry Regiment 488. He was killed by a headshot at Gobiati, Ukraine on June 28, 1941. Ludwig Mondlinger, who was a Gefreiter in the 14th Company, which was the Panzerabwehr Company of Infantry Regiment 488, was killed at Dubrovka, Russia on September 28, 1941. Hermann Brockel, who was an Obergefreiter in the 12th Company of Infantry Regiment 468, would die of pneumonia in Königsberg on January 25, 1942. Albert Meyer, who was a Gefreiter in the 2nd Company of Infantry Regiment 488, was killed by a headshot at Novaya Derevnya, Russia on February 19, 1942. Mikkel Hammerl, who was a Funker in the 1st Company of Nachrichten Abteilung 268, which is a communication detachment, and he was killed at Maloye Vasilkovo, Russia on April 21st, 1942. Johann Eigner, who was a Schütze in the 5th Company of Infantry Regiment 468, was killed by a headshot at Pavlovo, Russia on September 11th, 1942. And finally, Georg Meyerhofer, who was an Obergefreiter in the 5th Battery of Artillery Regiment 268, killed by an artillery hit at Sslussna on August 7th, 1943. So not only do I have a card for another member of the division that was killed the day before Xavier was, but a guy that was killed the day before Xavier was at the exact same village in Russia, which no longer exists, which I think is just a fascinating coincidence. Now moving to the bottom of the card here. I have to die far from home. The enemy's bullet brought me death. I fell in the middle of my comrades and went with them home to the good God. The little stars consecrate their holy shimmer to me and greet the quiet place of my grave. Oh, be of peace, it shines for me forever, the eternal light in my home. It lives well there, you parents and siblings, and comfort to you in your deep woe. It will only be a little while before we can all happily see each other again. And then moving to the back of the card here. Mary, reigning Queen of Mercy, stand for us at God's throne. So yeah, overall, really interesting card. I was able to do some good research on this. And yeah, like I said, it was just coincidental that I have so many cards for the unit from over the years. But yeah, hope you guys all enjoyed the video. Please leave a comment down below. Love hearing from you. Thank you all for watching. Happy collecting, and I'll see you all again very soon.